You want to know all about employment background checks? Let's go. Hey, this is Matt from Elevation Career, helping you in your job search through proven and practical tips. Previously, I made a video about how to ace your background checks without hassle. Many of you told me that you liked the video, and I received a lot of questions on this topic. So I decided to create a follow-up video for those of you who want to know more about the intricacies and how it really works behind the scene. Another reason I decided to work on this video is because I have been seeing more and more people, including some influential YouTubers, recommending people to actively lie on their resume, saying that there will be no consequences. Based on my personal experience observing close to 1,000 offers and background checks, this is simply dangerous advice which can cause immediate dismissal from your job or offer rescindment. My hope is that after watching this video, you will understand the risks involved more accurately so that you won't have to find yourself in an unnecessary predicament. Number one, it all depends on the employer. A lot of the questions that I receive have to do with what information and how much information will be verified. And the reason why you may find a lot of conflicting information on the internet is because it all depends. Except for minimum information such as criminal records, employment verification, and education, how much detail your particular background check will include ultimately depends on the employer. The vast majority of companies will hire a third-party background firm to conduct their checks. And there are options that these employers can choose. For example, how many years of employment history should be examined? How far back should they go in terms of criminal records? Should financial history, such as bankruptcy or credit rating, be included? What kind of proof documents are necessary? Should the documents be directly verified by the background checking firm? And etc. Basically, how comprehensive and thorough a pre-employment check will be depends on the individual firm's choice. Throughout my career, I have seen huge discrepancies, even among similar-sized companies in the exact same industry, in terms of how strict their verification process can be. With some companies, even the slightest misinformation could raise flags and significantly delay the offer process. But with other firms, we just had to send one email with an apology and everything was smooth as butter. Therefore, it's extremely dangerous to make a general blanket statement, especially about what you might be able to get away with. Just because someone happened to pass a background check, even with some misinformation in the past, it does not mean you can do the same and expect to have the same luck every time. Number two, it depends on the jurisdiction. Another important point to consider is what jurisdiction your new job is going to be under. Let me explain. Different countries and even states have distinct employment laws that govern background checks. For example, in some countries and locations, employers are forbidden to ask about previous salary information. In such places, obviously, compensation details will not be part of the verification process. However, in many other countries, especially in Asia, there is no such law, and information about salary will definitely be part of background checks. In fact, it'll be one of the most crucial pieces of information. Also, different locations have different laws regarding how long certain records, such as criminal or bankruptcy history, can show up, and it can vary greatly. All of these differences will have an impact on what will be asked during the checks and the outcome. Therefore, if you want the most accurate facts for your situation, it would be useful to know about the legal requirements of the location where your new job will be based. Number three, how long does a background check take? This is an extremely common question, and understandably so. With most companies, one can only start after the check is completed. So if it takes too long, your actual start date could be delayed. Ultimately, it depends on three factors: the employer, the background checking firm, and the candidate. As I mentioned earlier, how comprehensive and thorough a check will be depends on the employer. If the new employer wants a lot of information going back many years, the process will take longer than otherwise, simply because more items need to be gathered and verified. And then, during the check itself, how quickly the previous employers, universities, courthouses, and other organizations will come back with requested information will impact the duration too. Lastly, the sooner you can provide required documents for confirmation, the sooner the process should conclude. Now, how about criminal or financial records? I am not a lawyer, nor am I an expert when it comes to criminal records or bankruptcy. So if these matters are applicable to you, I would advise that you seek legal counsel from a lawyer who specializes in the employment law of the jurisdiction of your new position if you can. Having said that, there are some factors that you may want to consider, including misdemeanor versus felony. In most cases, a minor misdemeanor, especially one that is from many years ago, may not be a big issue, whereas a felony is a different story. How long ago was a record? Because in some locations, records over a certain number of years are no longer valid. Also, depending on the nature of the record, it's possible to have it expunged or removed. Lastly, for financial records such as bankruptcy or default, there may be certain arrangements available for you to make whole on your financial obligations retrospectively. This could be a very effective way to clear your history, again, if applicable. And lastly, number 5, can I lie on my resume or during my background checking process? My answer is do not do it. It's extremely easy for professional verification companies to authenticate information that you provide. All it takes is one phone call or one email. There are many bad advices that claim no one's really going to check, or you can say whatever you want. But this is a terrible recommendation. For any company that performs background checks, it's a simple matter to find out if any content is false. And intentionally falsifying information is a well-accepted reason for rescinding the offer. It's just not a wise move. Another related question that I often get is, can I omit previous employment details? Now, this one is a bit tricky, and the answer depends. If the previous employment was something completely unrelated to the position you're applying for example, an entirely disconnected industry or a short-term freelancing gig that is meaningless to your position, then it may be justifiable, though still risky if it was a very recent work. But if the previous employment was a relevant experience, then removing it would be considered as hiding information on purpose. Now, of course, omitting certain information is harder to check than an incorrect detail on a resume because if something is not there, they may not know to dig it up. However, it's a lot riskier than you might think. For example, if there is a long gap of unemployment, presumably because you chose to omit the in-between job, the HR may wonder what happened and decide to dig deeper. Another possibility is if the background checking company has your data from prior checks, they may have records of where you worked before. Lastly, employment verification companies can ask for tax documents, which would contain details about where your previous compensation came from, all of which are real-life examples of how concealed information can be discovered. Having closely observed numerous offers and background checks my entire career, I can conclude one thing, and that is when it comes to pre-employment verification, background checks, it's always better to disclose information up front than to be found out. When the process starts, you need to confirm or sign a document that says all the information that you provide is 100% accurate to the best of your knowledge. And if that's not the case, it will work against you. Even if it's something that would have been a non-issue and completely harmless, if the employer or the HR feels that you are trying to lie about it, they will most likely pull the plug. Based on my own personal experience, I'm not saying it'll always be the case, but based on my own personal experience, I have never seen anyone who honestly disclosed certain information up front, such as financial default or missing employment experience and etc., who ended up failing the background check. Of course, for everyone who worked with me, I helped them draft really good reasons and explanations that are as palatable to the HR as possible, which helped. And some of these situations dragged on for a while, but in the end, they all worked out. The only few times I have personally witnessed failed background checks were when discrepancies were discovered by the background checking company, whether it was done intentionally or by mistake. Again, if something is picked up during the verification process, it just becomes that much more complicated because it could become an HR issue. And this sort of makes sense when you consider the fact that one of the main intentions of a background check is to see if the potential employee is a reliable person who can be trusted to be honest in his or her work and dealings with other people, which will have an impact on the team and the company's performance. Now, just to clarify, I am not saying you should disclose everything about you. That's not right either. If you do not have to, it's probably wise not to bring things up. But what I am saying is, At least do not intentionally falsify information, especially during the background checking process, because the risk is much higher than you might think. By doing this, you could seriously put yourself at a disadvantage much more than you signed up for. Also, once you start down this path, you may need to continue to distort the facts, and it can become extremely tiring. Personally, I would like to suggest to you that this issue is more than just about getting a job. It's really about integrity. Integrity is who we are as a person and the choices that we make. Every time we choose honesty, we become more of a person of authenticity, and it'll be that much easier to make ethical decisions in the future. On the flip side, however, every time we choose to lie or cut corners, we will likely continue to resort to further dishonesty in all areas of life, leading to even more negative consequences. Which path do you want to be on deep inside? Thank you for watching. Hope you found the information here useful. As always, any questions, do let me know in the comments section. If you haven't watched my first video yet, the part 1 of my background checking series, you can click the video on this screen to check it out. All the best.